What's up, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of KyTalk Live with actor Mitchell Fain. I was lucky enough to get here, and he, by the way, did dare me to do this completely nude, so here we are, in our birthday suits, ready to chat it up. Welcome to the show, Mitchell. Thank you again for being here.
You're welcome. And thank you for agreeing to my demands. This is in my rider for every appearance I make everywhere for the rest of my life. It's in my rider.
You know, I could get used to this. I feel great. It's really liberating.
Well, it's funny. It was sort of a bit that we were doing, but part of it came up because I kept reading on Facebook or Instagram, people talking about trying to be funny, being like, how often are you doing laundry? How many days in a row are you wearing your drawers? First of all, who says drawers? Secondly, I'm like, who's wearing drawers? Like, if I'm not completely naked, which I am 98% of the time, I'm wearing very loose-fitting sweatpants. I mean, for those of us who are at home, right? It's like, who's putting on pants?
Exactly. Well, and I was always a commando guy anyway, so even before the pandemic struck it,
Thank you.
I'm not a drawers type of guy, word-wise or wearing them.
I'd like to know the derivation of drawers. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, that's just really confusing. But again, I really do appreciate it. You are one of my personal favorites. I first saw you in Looking Glass Alice many years ago, and you stood out among a very talented cast.
Yeah, that was an amazing group. I appreciate you saying that. That was probably the most extraordinary experience I've had in a theater. Was that whole Actors Theater of Louisville, Kentucky experience. The whole thing from start to finish was amazing.
It was a lot of fun, and obviously you must be in great shape to be able to do what you did there. I mean, tell me some of the.
Hey, go ahead.
I was to say, tell me some of the hardest parts of that show.
It was endurance. It was the endurance of that show because there were actually only 5 actors, but we each played 15 characters. So it felt to the audience like you were seeing a cavalcade of actors, but it was only us. And so the hardest part, I mean, I'm a pretty strong guy. I mean, this was several years ago, so I was in probably better shape then, but I mean, obviously, but it was like, for example, like if I'm going to run, I run quickly and intensely for a very short period of time. I am not a long distance runner. And so Looking Glass Alice was a long distance game, especially 2 shows a day.
Were you really? That's impressive, actually. And I can tell you right now, I see you naked, so you're in wonderful shape. I can say that.
Thank you. I'm doing okay. I think for my age, I'm doing okay. I made a vow to myself that every day until I die, I'll be able to stand up and sit down in a chair without using my hands, and I'll be able to touch my toes. Those are my fitness. In my 50s, those are my fitness goals.
Great advice. For me, I'm just trying to stay in good enough shape to keep up with my kiddos. Hopefully I can do that, and we'll see.
Yes, exhausting.
They're very exhausting. Now, one of the coolest memories I have with that show, of course, the Red Queen. It was amazing. I couldn't even imagine. But I took my son, I took my son who was 3 years old at the time. We were in the second row. And I can remember the first row, they turned around and looked at me and they gave me the look. Like, why are you this guy? And I just, I'm sitting there, I kind of look over him like, I'm just going to have to tell them to turn around, watch the show before I hurt you. But my son loved it. He never, ever took his eyes off the stage, never caused commotion. The only time he made a sound was when he was applauding everybody. And I was just like, it was so amazing.
It was such a visceral show, there was so many surprises. Dave Catlin, the guy who adapted the story and directed it, and Sylvia Hernandez, who choreographed it, literally there's a surprise in every scene. Like no one saw it coming. The entrance is the Red Queen. Literally they somehow figured out, it's like stage magic, figured out a way to hide a 16-foot Red Queen so that the audience doesn't even know I'm there until suddenly, boom, there's a 16-foot human being on stage. Amazing.
It was amazing. It really was. What was I going to ask regarding that? Because again, one of my favorite shows, and I've seen so many in my lifetime, so that one really stands out to me to this day.
Here's a little like backstage secret about that. Because of the way the Alice gets revealed, if you're playing Alice, I mean, not Alice, I mean the Red Queen. If you're playing the Red Queen, you have to get in place a good 20 minutes before the show starts, so that because it's difficult to get strapped into this 16-foot ladder that you're sitting on top of, and then put on a bodice, and then a 3-foot wig with a microphone, get in place. The person underneath who's going to move the apparatus so it looks like you're floating has to get in place. So you sit there perfectly quiet in pitch blackness for 20 minutes before the show, and then as the Red Queen, you don't enter until 15 minutes in the show. So you're backstage, quiet as a church mouse, can't move, strapped into something that you couldn't get out of if you wanted to, without the help of dressers, for 45 minutes.
So definitely use the bathroom first.
Use the bathroom first.
Okay. See, it reminds me of like those actors who've like been Batman. They get in a suit and it takes forever with makeup and costumes. And
Yes. They find ways around those things.
now, there are quite a few projects I do want to get into with you, because you've done some amazing things that I've just been really impressed with in theater and on television. But one of the things I want to jump into before we get there is you actually did deal with COVID-19. And I'm glad to see that you are recovering. I tell you what, I love looking at your Facebook. You and I have so much in common. You have no idea. It's so much fun to sit there and see it. And I'm like, see, Mitchell gets it.
Yes.
But tell me about that. I mean, your experience, how it was. I'm really curious, especially right now with this entire pandemic, because it scares me.
Yeah, it's scary. Listen, I think I was in Key West before the whole thing blew up. I flew home on a Monday morning, felt fine, no big deal. By the time I got off the plane, I did not feel well, and by the next day, I was full-blown sick. I had it for about 2 weeks, in which I was out of commission, and it is like, I mean, people compare it to the flu, but I think people get confused that they think it is a flu. It isn't a flu, but it's literally 10 times worse than the worst flu you've ever had. It feels like someone knocks you on the back of the head with a frying pan, and then you can't really get up or move, and your head hurts, and your fever's going up. And it was very scary for me because, I mean, I'm very grateful that I got what they call a mild case in medical terms. If that's mild, man.
Wow, yeah.
So I stayed home. I isolated. The problem is that you're home. I was pretty early on in, like, certainly my friend group understanding of what was going on, and the media too. So I'm all alone in my tiny little apartment. I know that I'm sick. I can't leave the house. I have access to my doctor in that she's doing her best to stay in touch with me, but she's got many other patients. She's got a family and kids, and she actually runs the health clinic here in Chicago, Howard Brown Health Center. So, she's not on my beck and call. So when you're alone and you're like, what's too high a temperature? At what point, if I can't, like, what is too much of a cough? I had to sort of figure out on my own what my barrier was for panic and for going to a hospital, and that was very difficult. The symptoms alone were bad. I mean, I have 2 weeks of my life that I don't even remember. I made phone calls. I had FaceTime conversations. I ordered things online. I bought plane tickets. I have zero memory.
Unbelievable.
Zero memory. I lost my taste and smell, which I didn't even realize until I woke up one morning after having been in bed for probably 3 days straight, and I rolled over and I took a whiff of myself and realized, and I realized, oh God. And then I thought, oh, whoa, that's the first time I've smelled anything. Oh, whoa, I haven't been able to smell anything. And then I thought, you know what? It's not bad. I like it. I mean, we all like our own stink.
Oh, absolutely. My stink is great.
It's not. So it was hard. I was lucky. I had a lot of support. And like I said, my doctor was as participatory as she could possibly be, which is above and beyond.
Wonderful.
I also have a very good friend who's a young man who's an ER doctor in the South Bronx, who's on the front lines, very front lines. And he would text me and answer my questions despite how busy he was. So I had a lot of support, which is pretty amazing, but it's not fun. It's not fun. And I'm it knocked me on my ass. Can I say ass? It knocked me on
Absolutely.
it knocked me on my ass, and um, I can only imagine if someone wasn't as healthy as I am.
Well, again, I am glad you're doing well. What do you recommend for anybody else that's going through this? Because, like you said, it was pretty bad, and you being
I'll tell you
alone
what,
is terrible. That's
it's terrifying. And so here's my advice, if I have any advice to give, which is um, monitor your symptoms. Right? Yes, we all want to get tested. Yes, of course we want to know. But in the moment when you're not feeling well, getting tested is not the most important thing. Getting tested is very important for the CDC, for mapping this, for tracking it, but when you're sick, I know that I spent a couple of days really perseverating on getting tested, which I had gotten tested I got home on a Monday. I got tested on Tuesday. They had just opened up a testing facility in Chicago, so timing was great. But then it took 10 days for me to get the results. 10 days, and I spent a couple of days really like freaking out about it until I realized, my job is to stay away from other people and monitor my symptoms. The best case scenario is to monitor your symptoms at home. And so if your temperature goes too high, you got to go to the emergency room. If you're up to 10, if you want up to 103 and it won't go down, you got to go to the hospital. If you
mhm.
can't, if you literally you can't, you're starting to not have breath, you got to go to the hospital. But if not, it's just monitoring your symptoms, taking good deep breaths, taking fever reducers, taking your temperature, uh, hydrating, sleeping. Uh, that's the best thing to do, is to stay home and take care of your symptoms, monitor your symptoms. If it goes too far, you got to go to the hospital, and you
Absolutely.
don't have to call anybody, and you don't have. That's what I was worried about. I didn't even know. I was like, what's the protocol if my temperature is 103.5 or I can't breathe? And my friend, the ER doc, said, there's no protocol. Just go to the hospital. They'll know. They'll know. So I was all panicked about what to do, and a hospital is going to be scary. And the reality is, if your if your temp won't come down and you can't breathe, go to the hospital. That's it. The rest of the time, monitor your symptoms, go to sleep. For me, NyQuil was my friend. Medical grade indica cannabis gummies was my saving grace. And I mean that both as a stoner and as a medical patient. Um, Seriously, I'm a stoner. I admit it. I was born in the 60s.
I
It's my
love the
birthright.
stuff.
I mean, it's the best. And so my new understanding of what it is as medicine is off the chain, and I am ready to go on a book tour about it, because I'm not sure how. Oh, but I didn't tell you. Another thing happened. So I go to get tested on Tuesday, and like I said, it was the first day it was open.
Hmm.
I might have even been the first person there. So they stick this long swab, like a very long Q-tip, but thinner, up very high up into your. And so she told me it was going to be uncomfortable, and that she was going to do it twice. She was going to do one nostril for the COVID and one nostril for just regular flu.
Ooh, okay.
If you have regular flu, then you can explain your symptoms. Um, so she sticks it on my nose. So, first of all, she was very nervous. She was very kind, and she was a very nice person. And she was so nervous, and she kept picking things up and putting things down, and we're wearing masks, and it's outside, and it's very scary, and no one knows what's going on, and she's very, very, very nervous. And so she pokes me, and it hurts really bad,
It doesn't
really
sound
bad.
comfortable, yeah.
It was really bad, and I recoiled, and she joked and said, "Oh, well, if it didn't hurt, you think I didn't do it right." And I was like, "No, I think you did it too much, but okay, you're nervous. Can you do the other nostril?" So she does the other nostril, and it's uncomfortable, but it doesn't hurt. I go home. I'm full blown sick, right? By Wednesday, I'm
Hmm.
full blown sick. Fever's in the 102. I've got chills. I'm achy. All this sort of stuff. Luckily, I never lost my breath. It never got into my chest.
Good.
Thank God. But what happened was she must have punctured me, because I got an infection, and this whole half of my face blew up like a football.
Wow.
And so for 3 days, my eye was closed. I was black and blue. I was this whole side of my face. I looked like the kid from Mask, and you know, and it was the most painful thing ever. I
Mm.
mean, pain. Like I've had 5 kidney stones. I've broken my ribs, and
Wow.
nothing can come close to this. And so the only thing that helped was weed.
Well, and I love hearing that actually. I mean, the truth is, I love the stuff, and Illinois just recently it became
Yeah,
legal, didn't it? So
yeah,
that's a quick
yeah.
trip for me,
I,
honestly.
yeah, it's legal in Illinois, and I've had some for a while, and even before. I mean, it was legal for me because I got my medical card pretty quick for other reasons. But
Hmm.
um, so I what I learned was that I don't know if anyone who ever gets high, sometimes you get a little too high for a minute, and it feels a little bit like work at the beginning. You know, where you're just like it's a little bit like I've realized that feeling when you need it as medicine is actually the medicine. That thing that we fight when we don't have pain or we don't have something to fight against. We're just like, oh, I'm a little too high. I got to sit down for this for a second. That feeling
Yeah.
is actually what the sweet spot is, because when you need it, if you just sit in it and let that overwhelm you, then you're disassociated from the pain, which is what it's meant to do.
Yes. And for me, I do use it for pain. I'm in constant pain, but it's also anxiety. I can be one of those guys that, you deal with depression and anxiety, so it does come in handy for
So
those. I'm
you're an
so
indica person.
yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Fun times, right?
I love it. I mean, how fun that the only side effect is that you get a little high and watch movies.
Exactly, and I never understood the actual fear mongering behind it. And you look into the history; it does get. I won't bore everybody with it, but it was nothing more than fear mongering. And
You know, like it was perfectism. Yeah, I mean, I even have friends, my landlady downstairs and her partner. I mean, I love them; they're great, but they're so like they still think of it as like the evil weed.
the
I mean,
devil's plan.
they're younger than me.
Wow.
Like it's not like they're older people. They're younger than me, and they still have this thing about like, well, you can have a cocktail, but that the evil devil's weed.
Well, and I've never understood that, especially comparing it to alcohol, because alcohol,
Uh,
of course, yeah, I mean, the effects of alcohol are just damaging to a person's body. And I'm going to take a
Also,
sip as I drink, I say that, but
so who gets into a bar fight after smoking a joint?
exactly. I mean, the most I might do is struggle with a bag of Doritos, but,
Exactly. Right.
but yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'm laid back as hell. I really do. It relaxes me, and I love that. Now, I love the fact that you are also very mindful about what happened and what you were going through during the whole COVID-19 situation. What are your thoughts with all of these people, their conspiracy theories, those that don't want a social distance, those that are protesting?
You know what? I read an interesting article yesterday, a psychological article. So I'm trying to understand these people and trying not to be hateful, although I hate them with every fiber of my being. But I'm trying to be a better person. So I am one of those people who, when I go run errands and I've got my mask on and my gloves and I see people not, I yell at them. I freely, fully yell at them. And so it's infuriating to me. And these conspiracy theories, that video that went around, I read an interesting article
Hmm.
that said that we have conflated the word freedom to mean something else than what it is supposed to mean.
Mm-hmm.
And that you have children, so there's that period in childhood, early childhood development, where they learn the power of no, right?
Oh, I
And so
recall.
to them, children, they think that's asserting some sort of freedom, except when they say no to things that are beneficial to them. Kids do that. Don't touch the stove. No, I'm going to touch it anyway. Like whatever those things are. But they learn no, and they try it on for size, right? And it feels like independence, even though they don't have that word. It feels like autonomy, even though they don't have that word. But it's immature
Yeah.
because they don't have the discernment to understand when to use it. That's what's happening now. We as a country pretend that we're exceptional when in fact we're mostly a bunch of toothless white trash trailer trash, and we elected a president because of it, because we used to admit that that's true. Now that's I was being hyperbolic to make a point. What are you saying?
I said, I heart you. Just for saying that
Well,
is amazing.
I'm making a point to be hyperbolic. It's like we pretend that we're all these very smart, special people, when in fact we're not. And I use as an example my family. So um,
And two.
we are a nation that elected this mentally ill nightmare to the presidency because we said no, we don't want a black man as president. No, we don't want. So it's this immature no that these people are equating as freedom
Hmm.
because they're not intellectually mature enough to understand that the freedom to stay home, the freedom to protect each other, the freedom to make wiser decisions is what freedom is.
Yes.
Not that you can't go to the Piggly Wiggly, or that the Cheesecake Factory is closed for a while. It's infuriating.
It really is. And catching up, we do have people watching as well, so thank you guys for joining. Much appreciated. I do appreciate the cheers. And okay, the devil's lettuce. Wonderful. Yeah, it's great stuff, isn't it? Social distancing. My mom went to the shops to grab stuff we need. A lady barged into her and wasn't staying 2 meters away, so mom, being 5'1", at best shouted and scared an adult couple away from being idiots. Wonderful. I love it, Caps. Truth will set you free. Yes, absolutely. And I'm very proud. I keep a mask in my vehicle. Of course, I only go out for the essentials, and that's usually bourbon. So, but yeah, and that's one of the reasons I actually loved following you on Facebook was your stance on a lot of issues. And we could get into that, but that would last for days, I'm certain.
Yeah. And here's my deal. Here's my couple of things I've learned as I round the corner into old age. That there's two different things. There's nice, which is polite. Nice is like, oh, bless their heart, those people don't understand. That's nice, right? But kind is the truth.
It is.
Being kind is telling somebody the truth. Being nice is pretending you don't have lettuce, somebody doesn't have lettuce in their teeth, and being kind is telling them that they have lettuce in their teeth.
Agreed.
That's my point.
We've actually embraced a lot of, just ignorance here in this country lately as a society, and that's it's been really hard to deal with on a daily basis. And of course, a lot of it stems or is really spiked since 2016 on so many levels.
It's validating. It's validating to have someone in the office who pretends that some idiot's point is valid, or some conspiracy theory is valid, or that facts on facts. Remember we started 2016 with alternative facts.
Oh my Lord, yes.
So that's where we started this administration. Just everybody take a deep breath and take that expression in, right? I think I'm going to pretentiously misquote Isaac Asimov. I can't remember where he wrote it, but years ago he wrote, there's a quote from him talking about how this country is embracing an anti-intellectualism.
Yes.
Because it makes dumb people feel better. Now, when I say dumb, I don't mean someone who's mentally challenged or educationally challenged. I'm talking about willful, deliberate ignorance. Right? Like, once again, I take it back to my family. There's so many people in my family who are so unbelievably uneducated, and so instead of like going to get, you don't even have to go get an education, or just go to Google, right? You don't even have to get an education, just Google everything. And so they refuse to do it, and so then they get prideful about their ignorance. And so someone like who validating their ignorance, even though he doesn't like these people.
No, he can care less.
The fact that they want all of these people to go back to work is telling us he's trying to thin the herd.
Yeah, and he doesn't care. He's very apathetic when it comes towards all of us.
Possibly care.
Yeah.
He does not care.
No, not at all. I mean, he's profiting off of the position he's in, which is a terrible thing anyway. One of the podcasts I love to do, it is usually political. I would love to have you back on for that one day, but
I'll do that. Yeah, let's talk about other stuff.
Yes, let's get back into you.
Enough about me. What?
No, this show is about you. Okay.
I have to say, I stole that quote from Beaches.
Oh, well, okay. And I do want to talk about that. What I was going to get into next here is the Santaland Diaries. You did that for 8 years in Chicago, I believe.
Yeah, 8 years.
Now tell me about that and your experience, because you made that character your own.
Oh, thank you. I loved doing it when I first got asked to do it. I had actually auditioned for it years ago when it first became a thing here in Chicago, and I got called in for it, and I didn't get it, and I was very disappointed. But the people who did get it, who did it before me in Chicago, are some heavy hitters, David Cromer being one of them, who's now a Tony Award director. He directed The Band's Visit on Broadway, won the Tony Award, and then several other Chicago actors, Joe Faust, Lance Baker, and So when it got offered to me, I was excited to do it, but scared to death.
Really?
Well, because it's one thing. I mean, I'm a character actor, right? So that means my job is usually to come on, support whatever the leading character's plot is, uh, create a character that affects that,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
then I go backstage and I do crossword puzzles. Uh, this is a show where you walk out on
It
stage
was
and
you.
you're the only person there, and you never leave, and you are responsible for every single moment of the thing from start to finish. And so that's a different level. That's just a different level. That's just another skill set that I had not at that point acquired. And so this was a little trial by fire. Here's a funny story about it, though. The first time I did it at Theater Wit, I'm a person who doesn't like to read reviews. I'll read them. I'm not one of those people who's like, I do reviews ever. I'll read them after the show's over, right? Or if I'm not super integral to the show, I'll read them, you know. But like I try not to read reviews about me during a show because, you know, if you believe the good, you got to believe the bad.
Yes.
So I was flipping through Time Out Chicago, and there was an article about all the Christmas shows going on. And so many of my friends were in holiday shows or created them. And so I thought, oh, I'll read about all my friends. As it turns out, it was actually a review. But I was halfway through a paragraph before I realized it was a review. And the critic, who I don't remember, and I don't even think this person's in town anymore, nor do I think they lasted very long at Time Out Chicago, said, now remember, I'm not reading any reviews. I've never done this show before. I've never done a one-person show before. And all I read is this person saying, quote, who told this guy he was funny, end quote.
Wow.
So then I put it away and I filed it in the back of my brain, and I did the rest of the run. That was, you know, a week into like an 8-week run, doing, you know, 9, sometimes 10 shows a week. The audiences were always pretty full because the show kind of sells itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, I'll just get through this. What a disaster. I'm so embarrassed. I mean, I sort of blocked out the fact that during the run, people were laughing and seemed to enjoy it. But in the back of my head, I was like, the critics hate it. This is a disaster. And then at the closing night, I said to the director, you know, I'm so sorry about the reviews. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, the reviews. He's like, please tell me you read more than just that one review. And I was like, no, I didn't. And he was like, he's the only one. He's the only, and so I carried that with me through the whole run. I mean,
Wow.
that's a little mini story about actors' brains.
Well, and that's the thing. Being an actor, you deal with a lot. The critiquing, the criticism. It's just horrible. I mean, you really have to have a strong mentality to push forward through everything. Because I've read actors who have gone for 200 auditions before ever landing a role. So it's rough. It really is.
Yeah, it is rough. The payoff is worth it. You know, I was chatting with a friend of mine who's very successful HR director at a, you know, sort of big corporation, and he has a lovely home, and he has a nice car, and he takes vacations, and I was saying, oh, I should have become an engineer like all my cousins, you know. And he said, yeah, but then you wouldn't have had the adventures you've had. And I guess it does. There is that payoff, you know.
Yes.
There is that payoff.
Well, and
So
there's
yes,
nothing
was that
like
years?
well, hearing the cheer of an audience as well. I mean, after a show has got to be just
Yeah,
the best and most satisfying
of course.
feeling.
Yes, I mean other jobs you don't get applause when you finish your job.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't. My friend Brian doesn't get up from his chair at the end of a day of being HR person, and you know the entire company applauds. That
Well,
doesn't happen. So
I'm hoping to
I
get applause after this show.
well, you'll have to stand up and turn around then. I mean, you
Absolutely.
know, it's merit based. You know, you don't just get applause for showing up.
I've got to work for this. I understand. Yeah, I got you.
Um, yeah, I did it for 8 years. It was a pure liquid joy. It became increasingly difficult as time went on, though, because the jokes kept getting older and older and older. So, like, by the time I finished my run doing it, it was 20 years old.
Wow.
So, getting jokes on references that are no longer relevant became increasingly difficult. And so, I would, you know, try to switch it up. And but then the people who wrote the thing got a wind of the fact that I was, you know, kind of
Incredible.
and they got wind of it and they didn't like it. They tried to shut us down,
Mm-hmm.
and they pulled it. I'm being super honest here. It's probably going to get me in trouble, but they pulled it. They pulled the rights from the small theater who made most of their money on this show
Mm.
with me, and because it's just one actor, one stage manager. We already had the costume, we already had the set. So this beautiful theater in Chicago made their, made their nut on this show every year, and then they pulled it under the guise of like they're gonna. I don't know why they pulled it under the guise of like I'm doing too much. They treat it like it was Tennessee fucking Williams, and it's not. I
Yeah.
love it. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Even Sedaris doesn't like it. He's famously quoted as saying he's embarrassed that this is what his legacy might be. So it's great, but it's not Tennessee Williams. And so they pulled it for that. They also said they wanted to update it and all this sort of stuff. And then they just gave it to the Goodman so they could charge $40.
Exactly. Well, and the sad part is it became such a staple there in Chicago. I mean, it became a tradition almost. For 8 years, you were doing this, and
I met so many that I'm still friends with, so many lovely people who came to see the show year after year after year, and I'd see them, I'd recognize them. I also would collect after the show, every show, for either the Season of Concern or for the Chicago Period Project. And so I would stand out on the edge of the stage in my costume every night and greet every single audience member who wanted to.
that's
So not
amazing.
only that, so I got to know people, a year later I'd see the same family come, and their kids were a year older, or they brought their cousin who was in town, and it was a beautiful experience. I loved it.
I love hearing about that. That just made me smile a lot. I got a little teary eyed, honestly. After that show was done, because of everything that happened, you went on to do This Way Out of Santa Land. Now, that was actually your own show, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I decided, when they told me that we couldn't do the show anymore, I panicked because, as actors, you plan your year, right? You go,
Yes.
all right, I'm going to do this from March, April, June, and then from July, August, September, and then, November, December, January. And so this was a huge chunk of my income.
Yes.
And so I panicked and I said, how about if I write a show? How about if I write a show? I write a show. We'll get the people who come every year. We'll at least get them to want to come this year. I think a lot of people might just want to come see me because it's become a tradition for us to hang out on Christmas, and I'll write my own show. And it started to be like the funny experiences of what it's like to do a one-person show. And then I realized that who cares? And so, and then I went into this, like, it also happened to be the year I was turning 50 and I was having a full-blown cliche crisis. And so this was in I don't know, like June. And then July, I hadn't written a word. August, I hadn't written a word. This is supposed to open mid-November. August, I've not written a word.
Wow.
September, I've not written a word. October, I've not.
So this was like the kid waiting to study before the test. You waited till the absolute last minute.
I was having a nervous breakdown, and then I finally said to the director, actually, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Chicago theater, but do you know the Annoyance Theater?
I've heard of it, yes. I do spend some time up there.
Yeah, it's like comedy. It's like a legendary comedy theater. It's still very vital. It's amazing. Always good shows. But the man who created it, Mick Napier, is a dear friend and just a genius. He's the comedy guru. And so I got back to town about a week before I was supposed to start rehearsals for a show that I had not written yet. And I called him and I said, I need your help. So he said, okay, come on over. So we went to the theater, his theater, and I started to tell him what was going on. And he stopped me and he said, I don't think you need my help writing the show. I think you already have the show written in your head. I think what you need from me is my permission to say that you get to do it, that there's a fear that you think to yourself when you do something like write your own show. Like, who the hell do you think you are? Who cares what you have to say? That was paralyzing me. And all it took was my friend Mick to say, I give you permission, do it.
You're empowered. You felt.
And it clicked. And then I literally never wrote it down. I talked it. I talked it into being. Never wrote it down. Still haven't written it down. I did it 2 years in a row. I wrote it for myself, and then partially, and then my friend Julie Nichols, who's a musical director, came on, and then my BFF, who I'm biased, but she's the best singer in Chicago. Her name's Megan Big Red Murphy, and she sang in the show. So I would tell stories, she would sing, and it ended up being really beautiful.
Oh my goodness. And unfortunately, I've never gotten to see it. I wish I could. So if it ever comes up again, please let me know.
I'll do it. I'll do it again eventually. Yeah.
Wonderful, because I do like to get up to Chicago as well. It's one of my favorite cities. Now, What took you to Chicago? Because you are originally from the East Coast, Rhode
Yeah,
Island, if
from
I
Rhode-
remember correctly. Beautiful
yeah.
state.
Um, I love it. I mean, listen, I didn't leave Rhode Island because it's not gorgeous. I left Rhode Island because um, my mentor from college, my acting teacher, my director, the chairperson of my department, my surrogate mom, basically said, "Get the fuck out of Rhode Island. It's
so,
a go out, go, 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 go."
so why not New York
Get,
City? You were so close.
well, what happened was, uh, my best friends had all moved here after college. All fellow theater students had all moved here one by one. They moved here, and so they were all together, and we would talk on the phone all the time. This is before what we're doing now, FaceTime and stuff, and we talk on the phone and write letters. Can you believe that? Letters. And so, and the theme of them were all like, "Why aren't you here?" Although I was the only one. I had a job as an actor in Chicago, and I really was the only one who was employed as an actor in Rhode Island. I mean, not in Rhode Island, but I mean, of my friends, and they were here. But I realized I did need to go to a bigger pond, and not just the theater pond, just like a bigger life pond, because
Hmm.
I love Rhode Island. But you can Rhode Island is 45 minutes from top to bottom.
Yes, yes.
The entire state is the size of Chicago.
If it weren't for the COVID-19 pandemic, we would be there in June or July. I was supposed to head back up that way. So,
Oh yeah,
unfortunately,
I
it's not happening.
I know. Well, I'm actually one of the things I bought when I was in my delirium. I bought new pillows. Um, I know. I must have been laying in bed delirious and like, I hate my pillows.
I
I
hate
can't
them.
get pillows. If I were grown up, I'd have good pillows. So I bought pillows. And I only knew that they were coming when I got a notification that they were on their way. No memory. I bought a T-shirt with Barbara Streisand's face on it, um, because clearly I was laying in bed listening to Barbara and thinking to my. I mean, I don't know. This is my fictionalized version of what went through my head. Laying in bed, listening to Barbara because she's my oldest and best friend, the first voice I remember, and thinking, I love her so much. She's always such a place of comfort. Her voice soothes me, and then I must have just ordered something from her store. So, and then the third thing I purchased was a one-way ticket for $39 on United Airlines to Rhode Island
Wow. I
for
love it.
June 25th. Now remember, this was like March 18th or 19th or something like that.
Yes.
So right now, I actually can still fly.
Hmm.
So I'm going to fly to Rhode Island on June 25th, and I'm going to spend as much time there as I can until some work brings me back here, because I can either do this here in a big crowded city, or I can do this by the beach.
Oh, exactly. It's no competition whatsoever. And the reason we were going was a renewal of vows. Two friends of mine, they're dear, they're wonderful people, LGBT community, and they were renewing their vows, and I was so excited to do this and
In
be a
Rhode
part of
Island?
it in Rhode Island.
Who was?
I will tell you, and I'll do this off stream, and I'll give you the location because I was just so thrilled, and I'm still hoping maybe we can do it. We'll see.
Are these men or women?
Men.
Oh, okay, because the original purpose of going home at that time was the two women that I'm staying with were renewing their vows.
Oh wow.
I had this weird moment. I thought, were you going to go to
Am I going
Louisiana?
to the same one? How amazing would that have been, though?
Amazing.
Exactly, exactly. Now, since we're on Chicago, I will ask, what are some of your favorite places? For me, I'm a foodie, and I still love Portillo's though. Every time I go, I have to
Oh,
have Portillo's one time.
it's great. I just did a show up in Skokie at the Northlight Theater,
Hmm.
which actually moving back to Evanston soon, but um, I did a show a year ago now, and there's a Portillo's up there, and I had never had it.
Really?
Well, it's more of a suburb thing that I can't even
Yeah.
think of one in the city, and so I spend so much time in the city, and it's not an East Coast chain, and
Mm-mm.
so oh yeah, so I would in between shows on a Saturday.
I actually, for my wife, and she doesn't know this quite yet, I ordered Illuminati's pizza because she's never had it. She's never been to. She's been to Chicago. It's been 20 years or so for her, but she's never had Illuminati. So I made sure to order it for Mother's Day. It won't be here till after, but she's getting it.
It's good. Um, I so many favorite places in Chicago. I'm a nester, so I tend to stay in my neighborhood. Luckily, my neighborhood has every possible version of cuisine that you could
Love it.
possibly want. The best brunch in Chicago is M. Henry on Clark Street. Um, The best brunch. Oh man, they have a fried egg sandwich that's like beyond description. Um,
Mimosas?
oh no, they don't have a liquor license.
Okay. Well, still.
Although I do love a Bloody Mary bar though. I like one of those places with such an intense Bloody Mary bar that like it is breakfast
Oh,
or lunch,
yes.
but
Yeah,
there's like
crab legs, pickles.
yes, and so you basically are having lunch and cocktails at the same time.
It's a beautiful
Love it.
thing. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm in Kentucky, so there's not a lot of that in my area, but it's like an
Well,
hour drive for me.
there's that really cool area. Is it Bardstown
I'm
Road?
20 minutes. Oh, Bardstown Road is in Louisville, yes, and that's a wonderful area for when it comes to cuisine, and
Yes,
it's
and it's got fun.
incredible.
Yeah, shopping and food. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's fun. It's like I grew up, just outside of Providence, Rhode Island, and in Providence there's this area, the east side of Providence, which is where Brown University is,
Yep.
and it reminds me a lot of that, and
Really.
sort of. I think yeah, it's like it's got the funky little shops and cool restaurants and a little bit more alternative than your chain restaurants and stuff like that.
Well, next time you're down here, because I know, again, with your career, you do travel here and there. So next time you're down here, whether it's Louisville, Actors Theater of Louisville, let me know ahead of time, and we'll at least take you out on a bourbon tour.
I love it. My boyfriend's mom and her husband and his brother too all live just out like 45 minutes an hour outside of Louisville.
Really? Do you know what town by chance?
I don't. I'm so bad. We were there last summer before we went to the Rhode Island together.
Because I'm
It
actually
was really
about 45 minutes out of Louisville, so
cool.
you never
Yeah,
know. They could be right next door.
I'll definitely be back in that area because I really love his family's really cool.
Great. Well, I can't.
Yeah.
That'll be wonderful. Yeah. So I'll have to meet you and him.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, during the COVID, you actually had to be without him. How was that on both of you? That had to have been rough.
It's been really hard. I mean, we're trying to, like, for example, I used to do these contracts with Second City, the comedy theater,
Okay.
where they would send a cast of actors, improvisers, comedians out on cruise ships, on Norwegian cruise lines. And so you'd go for 4 months and you'd live on a ship and it was fabulous. I mean, I just went to the beach and made up jokes. It was fabulous. And I did that for 10 years, 4 months a year. And two of the years, my last 2 years were when we first got together. So we've been without each other before.
Hmm.
Um, and so we're trying to put it in that perspective, because we've been apart for 4 months. This is a little bit
Wow.
because he's so close. I think if I hadn't been away and then gotten sick immediately, we probably would have quarantined together or
Together.
sheltered together. But because when I got home, I was already sick. It was a done deal. So we have not seen each other, but we're working towards it. It's been very hard. Uh, it's been very hard because even when we chat like this or we sort of meet up, socially distanced,
Hmm.
it's it's unsatisfying. If a friend comes in my backyard and we sit 8 feet apart and chat, when they leave, we're both satisfied. We got
Yeah.
what we needed for interaction. When Christopher comes over, we didn't. It's not satisfying
No.
because what we want to do is, and I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about intimacy. But don't get me wrong, sex.
Yeah. I
So
mean, we're people. Come on. Sex is awesome.
and also he is he's such a he's a much nicer person than I am, in a lot of ways a more sensitive person, and very much needs a little scratch behind the ears. He needs affection more than I do.
That's me too.
uh,
So.
so yeah, sometimes sensitive boys, they need a little scratch behind the ear, and so I think it's been hard on him.
I hate to hear that. Um, yeah, hopefully everything will, because I know states are working towards opening, and I think it's premature, honestly. But
I do too. Well,
yeah,
we're working towards being on the same path of isolation so that we both know that we are. I mean, they're not 100% sure about being immune or antibodies,
so,
but obviously I had it. I'm over it. I don't interact.
hmm,
I'm socially distanced from people, and he's socially distanced so that we have a plan. I actually have to move out of the apartment that I'm in right now. Long story. And
hmm.
so next Sunday, and then we're going to cohabitate. So we've been working
Good.
towards isolating enough so that we can feel safe being together.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Trust me, I can't wait. And hopefully, if you ever come back here again, you can bring him on too, and it'll just be a wonderful, fun time. Today's stream is I want everybody to try to get to know you because you are, again, you're amazing. You really are. Hopefully, in future streams, we can just sit there and BS a little bit, talk politics. I've mentioned you a million times on some of my shows. I honestly have.
Listen, you ask me a question, I'll have an opinion. I do not suffer from lack of opinion. I can tell you that right now.
I love that, and I kind of figured. I've been, I mean, hell, ever since the show, we've been friends on Facebook for how long now? And every time I get on there, it's like, he's not shy. Not even a little. I mean, you got me.
Well, there's two shy, right? I'm shy. There's shy in the corner and shy in the middle of the room.
Yes.
I can be a little shy in the middle of the room, but I'm not shy about my. Like every human being, I have all sorts of insecurities. But whether or not I'm talented or smart are not two of my insecurities, because it's a waste. Well, it's a waste of time at a certain age. I get. When you're younger and somebody compliments you and you go, oh, no. When you get older, it's a waste of time and energy. If you don't know who the hell you are by the time you're 50, I mean, you got to accept who you are. And so I accept that I'm a loudmouth and I'm opinionated, and I'm pretty smart.
And that's why people love you. And
also,
and nude. I mean, look at. Not many people can make me do this, by the way.
I love it. It's the best. It's so funny. It's so normal and so natural that we have forgotten about it. So I just.
Oh yeah. Well, honestly, 2 seconds ago I did think about it because one of my kids was knocking on the door. It's locked. But I was going to say also, you were talking about in the center and in the corner, and my whole comeback to that was nobody puts Mitchell in the corner. So
they can try.
They can try, but it ain't happening. We know that.
Also, I'm a little person. Like, I'm only 5'3". I'm a scrappy little dude. Try to pin me down.
I tell you what, it's the smaller people that scare me. So always, I'm 6'1", and I've got a lot of experience when it comes to combatives and martial arts. And I tell you what, it's the smaller people that always scare me. Not the 6'4", not the 6'5". Those guys I'd have fun with at a bar when I was in my 20s.
Right.
In my 40s, I'm not going out to bars much anymore.
Yeah, I'll sweep the legs. You're in trouble. I'll
absolutely. Yeah. That scares me. See, and now I'm sweating. I'm getting anxious. I'm gonna have to smoke a joint after this.
I wish I could. I have to put an audition on tape later this afternoon.
Oh, really?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, people who aren't actors don't know what to self-tape an audition is the phone. Like, auditions are already so stupid and so phony because you're standing and you're pretending that you're talking to a person and you're not talking to a person, or if you are talking to a person, they're sitting down behind the director with a piece of paper. And so there's all this. I know acting is pretending, but when you're standing next to another human being, you're having actual interaction, right? Then it becomes the truth, on stage or on camera. Yes. But auditions are so phony and weird. And then on top of it, now I'm all by myself here. So later this afternoon, I'm going to set up something like this. I'm going to film myself and put my computer somewhere else so that somebody remotely can read the other lines to me. And then I have to act straight ahead
towards the
while I'm. And also, there's lighting. There's it's a nightmare. So I have to be not stoned to do that.
I'll have to talk to you someday about more of the acting and casting. I for a short stint. Tried my hand at it 20 years ago and found my way into partying more instead of working hard. I figured it was one of those things you fall into. It wasn't.
Yeah.
But speaking of casting,
fun, but
it's still a lot of work. You put hours and hours, a lot of sweat and tears. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is I'm naked. I got people walking in. You need what?
I need a key.
What key?
Gate.
I don't know where it's at.
Yes.
It's in the car. I put it in the car.
It's not in the car.
Okay, interview.
Yeah, I know you're interviewing. Hi.
That is my wife.
My wife.
Please pick up a red wine now that we're doing this.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You don't deserve it since I
don't deserve it. Okay. Ich liebe dich. Casting, how was that for, and it's one of your more recent television debuts. It was, not debuts, but your television series. You were in 4 episodes of The Red Line, if I remember correctly.
Red Line, yeah, CBS series. It was it was such a great series. I wish they had given it a second season.
Yeah.
It unfortunately premiered at the same time as Game of Thrones, so nobody was watching it. And CBS Online, they made it free, but nobody knew that. So not a lot of people watched it, but the people who did really loved it. It was an extraordinary group of people to work with.
Well, and the writer is from Chicago as well. The two writers, I believe, they're from Chicago,
Yeah.
the ones that created the show, which is great. But it takes place and it works really well right now in this political environment. It was
Yeah.
the show revolves around 3 families and a shooting of a black guy. I mean, in today's
White cop kills a black doctor because he assumes that he's a criminal.
Exactly.
And watch the fallout from the cop's family, from the doctor who got shot and his husband and their adopted daughter, and then a third storyline of the politicization of that, which is particularly relevant.
Yes.
And so it tracked those 3 families through Chicago using the Red Line, which is a north-south train, right? So there's where the doctor lived on the north side, and then the politician downtown, and then the cops, the white family, which is farther south.
Further south, yeah.
Smart.
Yeah, I really wish there would have that show would have continued. What was your experience like? I mean, tell me about that show.
It was fantastic. It was the most open, diverse, welcoming. I mean, almost all of the directors were either women of color, or people of color. The crew was a mix of every single type of person from top to bottom. The only sort of famous person on it was Noah Wiley, formerly of
the librarian,
and from ER.
ER.
And he was so interesting and so smart and so conscious of the fact that he was like this white straight guy playing a gay guy on this show that was more diverse. And he was so open to myself and the guy who played my husband, Jeff, of talking about it and wanting to know more. And not that he doesn't have gay friends, he's an actor, he grew up in LA. He has a million gay friends. He was raised by gay men, And so, but to be real specific about stuff, like, for example, I said to him, he's a great guy, by the way. I couldn't say more. I can't say more nice things about him. He's a terrific person. And I said to him, he said, well, what do I need to know? I was like, well, for example, in your relationship with your dear departed husband, were you the top or you the bottom? And he was like, I hadn't thought about it. I was like, a gay person would.
Exactly. No, that's a great point, and I wouldn't have either. It's
part of the dynamic of your relationship, right? It's
yeah.
part of the it's part of the intimacy of a relationship that makes a relationship real. Otherwise, you're just play acting. And so he was so interesting and open to it. In fact, when I was really sick, I was checking my phone very rarely, because I could barely open my eyes. But one of the messages I got was from him, which was very sweet.
That is amazing. I love him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah,
but the experience was amazing. I mean, I've done a handful of TV gigs that come through Chicago. Eventually we all get filtered through them, and usually it's always very nice, but nobody knows who the hell you are. They don't care about who you are, not in a mean way. They just don't have time, right? You're not integral. So you get there and somebody takes care of you. There's a PA, but you sit in your trailer for hours and you think, do they even remember that I'm here? It's a very weird, isolating experience. And then you sit there for 8 hours and they go, great, go. And then you have to then act. And if it's emotional, you better be prepared, because you don't want the person that nobody cares about, that nobody knows about, who holds up production.
Holded everything up.
So yeah. But this show, the minute we showed up, even though the first 2 days of filming, I don't even know if we had any lines, Jeff and I. Well, we had maybe like one line in this big, very complicated group scene. It was supposed to be a gala, like an HRC gala, and we both felt so seen and taken care of and appreciated. In fact, Noah Wiley demanded that we come back for a second day of shooting, because he thought that our character should be part of this thing. So he actually got us a second day. He actually got us a couple of days of work, which is really great.
That's really great, yeah. Really quick with the chat. Thank you so much for the raid. We have a bunch more people joining us right now. Again, this is actor Mitchell Fain from Chicago, who has been in, again, when I think of Chicago, I think of Mitchell Fain, just so you know. It's been that way for many years. Mitchell Fain and Portillo, sorry. But no, I am not just shirtless. This is completely nude. Mitchell Fain made sure that this was how it was going to play out. So we are completely nude, actually.
Yep.
So, Modern Poet,
Yeah.
and Mitchell Fain is actually from Rhode Island. We were just talking about you and your wedding vows that I was hoping to come there too, and it still may happen.
That's who you're talking to?
Yes, they are actually on here right now. I love it.
Did they hear me say that I was actually going to Rhode Island around the same time because a gay couple of mine are also renewing their vows?
They just joined, so now they do. But yes,
Crazy.
it's amazing.
I don't know what they live in Rhode
Let's see if they'll tell me, and they have told me. I just Poets, where are you all in Rhode Island exactly? I know the park, especially. I should have that information here because that's where the wedding renewal is going to be.
Roger Williams Park.
That does sound familiar. They haven't said anything quite yet. We'll get back to that. Yeah, absolutely. I will. But again, Mitchell.
Here's the thing about Rhode Islanders. Rhode Islanders. There's one common thing about Rhode Islanders. First of all, we have the worst accent in New England. I've corrected most of it, but it's terrible. By terrible, I mean awesome. But also, nobody from Rhode Island can ever get over being from Rhode Island.
It's a blessing and a curse.
We love it so much.
I would love to live there.
It's cool.
Hawaii is home for me. I moved actually to Kentucky from Germany, which is really odd. But I fell in love with the Northeast. I would live Rhode Island or Maine are my two absolute favorites.
I love Maine.
Oh, Maine's beautiful, and I could do lobster rolls every day.
Oh, got it. Oh, every day.
Every day.
Wait, you were born in Hawaii?
Actually, no. Oddly enough, I was born in Germany. Hawaii is home where most of my family is. California, Hawaii, and American Samoa. But the time I've spent in Hawaii, I love the beaches. Who doesn't love beaches?
I love Hawaii.
Yeah.
I love Hawaii. I've had several adventurous experiences in Hawaii because of the work or relationships, and oh boy, I love Hawaii.
It's amazing. What are some of your favorite spots that you've hit?
Well, my favorite. Well, I love the Big Island.
Mm.
I love the Puna coast of the Big Island. It's so of course now it's covered in lava rock because it got covered over. But I remember finding this like private little black sand beach.
Oh, yes.
You have to crawl down a cliff to get to it. Nude beach. And I remember being there by myself one morning, super early in the morning, and it was the day after a storm. And I was just frolicking naked by myself, and then I saw this lesbian couple crawling down the rocks, and suddenly, we were polite to each other, but then we saw all these dolphin, literally like a school of dolphin, very close to and we all started to freak out, and then suddenly I'm like dancing like a lunatic with these two naked strangers, this lesbian couple, and we just, on this black sand beach and dolphins, and that's Hawaii.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so beautiful.
And the Big Island is so diverse as far as weather. Yeah. It's just an amazing place to check out if you ever go.
There's some statistic, I don't know if this is true, that almost all of the climates that are possible on the planet
are in Hawaii.
Island are in Hawaii.
It's true as far as you can pretty much get everything.
This tropical rainforest, right? It's so beautiful.
It is. Matter of fact, one of my last interviews was with Donna Perry, who was a Playmate 1994 Miss November. A great friend of mine, and that's how we met. It was back out in Hawaii many, many years ago.
Oh.
So it was a lot of fun to actually have her on the show, too, because, yeah. But, again, I have a feeling I'm going to be inviting you back a lot. You're going to be like, okay, seriously, stop calling me.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do naked more, I guess. So I better get back into shape.
Listen, I want to put a pin in that for a second, okay? Well, not a pin. I want to make a point about that. I am a person who has been in pretty good shape most of my life. I wouldn't say I'm in great shape, but I'm in pretty good shape, especially for my age. I've been in better shape. I was a member of the Midnight Circus, which is a Chicago performing circus. I was a performer for years. Now I'm a part of the artistic team, but and so I spend a lot of time with people who have quote unquote perfect bodies. Bodies that you can't. They look like they walked out of like a Men's Health magazine or like a fitness magazine. because that's the kind of bodies that get photographed for those things.
Mm.
But everybody's body is their body. If it's not functional, if for some reason you're not functioning, then it's time to change it. But if you're functioning and you just got a little chunk here or a little something there, or you're a little skinny here, or you're a little, I'm like, I guess the older I get, I'm just like, everybody's body is beautiful because it's theirs. Part of it is my Hawaii experience and working on cruise ships and going to nude beaches all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you go to a nude beach and people have all these feelings about it, and they think it's going to be prurient, or like you're going to be embarrassed, or like you're going to pop a boner, or all these things. And about 3 seconds in, all of that goes away, and you're so struck by how beautiful it is to be natural in nature. And you see all these bodies that people deem good or bad or whatever, popular culture, and they become so beautiful because they're human. And then you go, this is particularly true in the Big Island, because one day you can be in a black sand beach on the Puna Coast and then be in Kona, and it's all these commercial beaches, and it's well, with the same bodies wrapped in orange lycra,
Mm-hmm.
which seems bizarre and less attractive than that body being that body. So like I said, I'm a person who does tend to stay in shape. I am a person, for me, my version of shape, I'm a person who spends a lot of time with people whose bodies are culturally what supposedly we're supposed to aspire to, but it doesn't make you happier.
Well, and I'm
You know
with
what I'm
you
saying?
on the fact that the human body, no matter who you are, is a beautiful thing. I've never
It's
had an
beautiful.
issue saying that about anything, anybody, anyone.
Yes, loving your body is attractive.
Yeah.
That's what I'm attractive. Loving. I mean, I hate to sound, I get all like Oprah on us, but it's actually true that loving your own self, your body, makes you attractive to other people. You know?
Well, it reminds me of a saying from many years ago, and it took me a long time in my adult life to figure this out, but you really can't be happy until you stop worrying about what everyone else thinks about you. You have,
Right.
yeah, I mean, you have to appreciate yourself. You have to be able to just be happy being who you
Well,
are.
I'm an avid and voracious viewer of RuPaul's Drag Race, and RuPaul's Drag Race, which I could make a very intellectual argument for being the best show on television, and it 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 ends. Every show ends with RuPaul saying, "If you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you gonna love somebody else? Can I get an amen up in here?" Every single show, every single show ends with that. You can't love yourself. How in the hell are you gonna love somebody else?
And it's true.
I think it is true. I think it's a journey. I think it's harder for some people. I think there's lots of issues and stuff in the way, trauma that's happened to us when we're young that have blocked the path to self-love.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a goal. It's not a magic pill. Here, I'm gonna go off for a second. It's not a magic pill. Some lady years ago, some middle-aged lady wrote a book called The Secret, and she called it The Secret, and a bunch of other like sad people who felt helpless bought this book thinking there was some magic secret, when in fact the genius of that woman is that she called it a secret. It's not a secret. It's choices, right? We make tiny little choices towards what we want. And it's not magic, it's actually work. So today I look in the mirror and my very first thought is, I hate my nose, right? So not that didn't really happen today, but it happened through most of my life. So you wake up and you, whatever it is, whatever your version of you hate your nose is, your body, your whatever somebody's version is, right? Anybody. But if you stop, literally physically stop, not a secret, it's actual work. It's not pretend, it's not in your head, it's actual stopping, as if I'm looking around and say, no, your nose is perfect the way it is. You were born with it. It's your nose. It makes you unique and it makes you beautiful. And because we have 80% the same thoughts repeating every day psychologically, then it becomes the habit. It's not a secret. It's work. It's physically stopping yourself and out loud saying, that old story about my nose is not true. It's not my story. Here's my story. And so then that gets repeated every day. And that's where we get the self-esteem to love ourselves. It's work. It's not a secret and it's not magic. It's work.
I absolutely love you, Mitchell Fain. But you're right. It absolutely is. And I tell you what, for me, growing up, I had a ton of insecurities.
We all do.
Of course. And for me, I think what it was acting that helped me get through it, because I pretended to be someone else outside. And, eventually, like you said, it becomes a habit. This is who you become and who you're perceived as. The truth of the matter is, in some ways, that was the person I always was meant to be. Like, my wife looks at me, she's like, "You're so social." I'm like, "You should have seen me when I was 18. I was the shyest kid ever."
Well, it's funny. Speaking of RuPaul's Drag Race, this right now he's doing this 4-part special alongside the regular season, which is Celebrity Drag Race, and he gets 3 celebrities, whatever you consider a celebrity to a certain degree, who come on the show for whatever reason, and they get turned into drag queens by former famous drag queens. And so it becomes a show about empowerment and pushing boundaries and stepping out of a comfort zone. And it just for example, just last night's episode was 3 men.
Mm-hmm.
And the discussion became about that when you put on this thing, that drag doesn't turn you into somebody else. And I would say this is true about acting. It doesn't turn you into someone else. It reveals who you've always been. But the transformation into drag is so radical, not just the physical transformation, but the giving over to that radical a questioning of ourselves, and that kind of vulnerability and bravery opens up a part of ourselves that we don't even know until we do it. You can think about it, you can theorize about it, you can laugh about it, you can wonder about it, but when you do it, and you watched these 3 guys last night. One of these guys is a famous comedian. He's also like the host of some ESPN show. I don't know, a big dude, like a 6 foot something big muscly dude. And to watch him, straight guy, and to watch him, there's a moment where he turns around and sees his face in full beat for the first time, and to see the look on his face and to see him feel it from inside,
lit up.
Not that he's suddenly like a drag queen or questioning his gender, but it's more that he's allowing himself to be a fuller version of himself. And it's really amazing. And I think that we all owe ourselves that kind of radical re-examination of the stories that we've told ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, in society, it's been rough on all of us, as far as especially us. I mean, we were there in the 70s and 80s, and it's been rough the way people have, well, basically pushed their beliefs on how society should act, what they should be like, and we're just now getting to a point, well, I thought we've regressed a little bit here in the last few years, but
there's been a swing for sure.
And it's going to take decades, I think, to fix the damage, and that's unfortunate, but the self-love I enjoy, and the self-realization. I've never, ever been shy about who I am.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, like even like now, today, I do get nervous. I get nervous. I was very nervous coming on here with you.
Really?
Yes, and it had nothing to do with the nudeness. This part's fine.
Well, I sort of thought, I could tell you were nervous when we chatted a while ago, and I jokingly sort of suggested it, partly because in the same way that getting into a full beat drag, this sort of removes some of the barriers.
It does.
Right?
Yeah. All I have to do is kind of look down like, I'm good.
I'm good. Oh.
But next time you are in this area as well, there is a one of the best steakhouses in the U.S. is right here. It's called Le Mou. An amazing place. It ranks in the top 25 in the U.S., but they also do drag shows every weekend. So next time you're here, we all have to get together and do that.
What more do you need than like beef and drag queens?
I mean come on.
Also, it's like I totally understand. So many of my friends are vegetarians or vegans or pescatarian, all sorts of versions of it, and I totally get it. I get it environmentally. I get it, and I feel some version of, I don't know, guilt or empathy. You know what? I was raised by a butcher. I need a good steak every once in a while.
Every once in a while, yes. And I try to do Mondays for me, or meatless Mondays. I try to do meatless Mondays. I have a very dear friend of mine living in Wales that he's a vegan. So I love seeing anything he posts, recipes, I will try it. I love it.
Or delicious. But also I grew up on the ocean, so if I don't have fresh seafood.
Lobster.
I mean lobster, shrimp, clams. I love snake. I mean everything.
Oh yes, escargot.
Oh yes, escargot. I love it. Well, in Rhode Island, they don't call it escargot. It's called snail salad. If we're ever in Rhode Island together, well, if you go to Rhode Island with your friends, make them take you to Twin Oaks.
Hold on,
Twin Oaks, old school.
I'm gonna write this down.
It's in Cranston, Rhode Island. Twin Oaks is an old school. It's been owned by the same old Italian family for 1,000,000 years. Um, every time I go there over 50 years, I feel like it's the same wait staff. Of course it isn't, but it's always like these much older people who are your waiters, and they treat you very formal, although the restaurant's casual. The service is formal. And then there's a team of young Italian teenage boys. Well, not Italian, like Rhode Island teenage boys. And I swear to God, they're the same exact teenage boys, even though they're not. And it's such authentic, old school, family style Italian food. And one of the things you get there, and only in Rhode Island, is a snail salad.
Never had one.
Snails, cold, cooked cold, chopped up fine in a chopped salad with lettuce, tomato, onion, seasonings, all those things, and then chunks of snails in it. And the first thing I do when I get off the plane is head to Twin Oaks and get a snail salad at Twin Oaks. Got to do it.
I've got it written down, so I can assure you I'm going to be there now.
Also, the atmosphere is so brilliantly Rhode Island that it's hard to even if someone wants to know what it's like to grow up in Rhode Island, I say go to Twin Oaks.
Okay. Well, no, I have to do it now. I've never been there. So,
it's great.
Before we end this show, I do want to ask you one other question. We were talking about Maine earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Your favorite place in Maine? I have to know.
Oh, that's so interesting. My experience of northern New England is so based on there's a touring youth circus, the world's largest touring youth circus called Circus Smirkus, and it's based in northern Vermont, and then it tours all over New England for the summer. It's an 8-week tour. The kids have to get out of school early to participate because we train for 3 weeks in Greensboro, Vermont. And so as a child, we would go to Maine because you can wake up in Rhode Island and have lunch in Maine and be home in Rhode Island for dinner. And but as an adult, God, it's hard to decide. But because I have a really dear friend who lives in Portland, I guess I'd have to say Portland, Maine, because going to visit him and hanging out with, he's just cool. He's a pretty well-known writer. His name's Ron Curry Jr. He wrote a great book called God is Dead, another great book called Everything Matters. He's quite brilliant. And so visiting in Portland now, when I was younger, we liked to go to the LL Bean factory. So
Absolutely.
Going to Freeport is I still have a sweater. I won't get up right now because if I get up right now, we'll but sitting right over there is an old LL Bean sweater that my brother bought 40 years ago.
That's amazing.
That my sister stole from him, I stole from my sister, and is here with me now. And you can't kill this thing. This is an old school LL classic sweater that you cannot kill. It's the best.
I tell you what, I love LL Bean.
I do love.
And you mentioned getting up. You want to do the wave real quick?
Yeah. Listen, do not threaten me with a good time. I told you I have several insecurities, and that's not one of them.
Oh, I know this about you. And I learned that about you a long time ago, which is great. It's one of the reasons I absolutely adore you, dude. It really is.
Thank you.
Again, we do have to end this show. Mitchell, if you have just a few seconds after the show, please hang out just another couple minutes. For everybody else, thank you all for joining. Again, this is actor Mitchell Fain. Next time you're in Chicago, trust me, he is a gem of Chicago. Check out a show. You'll probably see him in the credits. He has directed, he has created, he has acted. This guy is simply amazing. You'll see him also in The Red Lion on CBS. You can stream that now. Check it out. It's such an amazing show.
It's a great show.
It is. Oh, no, thank you. And much love to everybody again. I really hope to see you all soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.